talk about work-life balance. And we have two amazing school leaders with us today. We have Lori Green and Mark French. And I'm so excited to have both of you with us tonight. I'm going to let you introduce both of yourselves and tell everyone about your job and your role in your schools. And then we will go straight into our chat. At the end of Mark and Lori's time, we will have a question and answer time that everybody can have some time. So thank you both for being here this first day of February, and we're excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'll start by introducing myself, and then we'll have Lori check in. And tomorrow, as my students know, it's Groundhog Day, and we are hoping that the groundhog doesn't see his shadow, because then there won't be 6 more weeks of winter, but there will be an early spring. So crossing our fingers for cloudy weather tomorrow in Minnesota. I am Mark French. I am principal at Gatewood Elementary in the Hopkins, Minnesota School District. I have about 500 pre-K through grade 6 students in a southwestern suburb of Minneapolis. I am a veteran educator. This is my 36th year as an educator and 21st as a principal. So I think some of the things I'll contribute tonight might be messages that I have gleaned and learned from a long career. So administrators and aspiring administrators who are starting your career, some of the things I might say, you might think, I can't do that now, or that isn't me, but it's just some advice for you to think about. So Lori, you're in Ohio?
I am. Thank you, Mark. I'm Lori Green, and I am the proud principal of Winchester Trail Elementary School. My building is a grades 3, 4, and 5 building, and I also house the preschool. We have just over 1,000 students in my building, so it is quite large. This is my 2nd year as principal. I have been in education for 23 years total, and I'm thinking this is my 8th year as an administrator. Only my 2nd year as an elementary principal. Previously, I was in the junior high and high school, and so it's been an interesting change for me, but I'm very happy with where I am. And I know tomorrow's Groundhog Day, but we've been facing a full moon this week. And so I'm just hoping that we don't have a full moon tonight, because I need a not so crazy Friday after this week.
That's right. I forgot about the full blue harvest moon. No, it was wasn't it a full blue eclipse?
Blood.
Right. Blood. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and anyone will also pay attention to questions that are added in. So even though we get to do the talking and sharing and we'll engage at the end, but if you have any questions that come up along the way, just plug them in and we'll take care of that. It's work-life balance. I think everyone deals with this and manages this wherever you are in your career. 36 years, 20, starting out. And what makes me, some of the things that I pay attention to for work-life balance are, you've got to find a way to make it a priority for your work tasks and then your home life. And we may manage that differently. I was thinking about tools that I use to help me find balance at work and at home. Now, I'm probably fortunate. I have a husband and no kids. So I really have to worry about getting one person ready in the morning. So things that I talk about, other people may not be able to do that. But I use the morning time when I wake up and some of my tools to check email messages, to check my schedule. And I find that this tool, this device, a smartphone, is really helpful for work-life balance. I keep one calendar on my phone and make sure that I have my work commitments and my home commitments. I do things like schedule in time to read stories to classrooms. I schedule time to do the observations. I schedule time to write up the observation. I schedule time for going out to dinner, just because for me, if I don't schedule it, I'm going to forget about it, and I'm going to put something else in, and then I double book myself, and then a conflict. So think about tools that you use that help you organize your life. I also, a great program, a very simple program on my phone is Color Note. So I use Color Note to make lists. Other people might write it down, post-it notes, but I keep an ongoing grocery list. I keep an ongoing task to-do list. So find the technology that works for you. Lori, do you use technology tools?
I do. In the same way that you schedule your observations and time to complete observations, I also do that. I complete my calendar, even with walkthroughs. All of the appointments that I have with parents. I even have on my calendar for tomorrow lunch with some third grade friends because they had requested lunch with me earlier this week and I didn't have any room in my calendar. But you know, it really is important to make sure that you set aside the time. And sometimes it feels like, well, maybe I don't need to put that on my calendar. But the minute you don't, it kind of goes back to what Mark said. You can double book yourself very easily. One thing that's really important to me at work is having an open door so that teachers and students can come in. And so most of the time, unless I'm in an appointment, my door is open. And I try not to, schedule too much in a day because aspiring leaders, one thing that you probably already know as a classroom teacher is you can have the best laid plans for your day, and then something like a full moon, a 2-hour delay, some kind of maybe illness has struck and you're short teachers, and so you have to split class or something like that with to cover a substitute shortage. So the best laid plans don't always come to fruition. So you have to have that flexibility, in your work life, especially.
Mm-hmm. The Color Note tool I use is an app. I think it's a free app. I've actually had it for a long time. It just is a way for me to organize my thoughts. So I've got a running note about professional development topics and upcoming staff meetings. So I'm a person that if something's in my head, if I get it down on paper or into Color Note, then my head is clear and I can sleep well. I think also I would recommend sync your schedule with your administrative assistant. My administrative assistant has access to my calendar and my schedule so that she can plug in meetings or commitments. One thing that I learned recently, even after all these years, it's like, why didn't I ever think of that before? Sometimes I have meetings outside of the building, at another school, at the Minnesota Department of Education, at the district office. My secretary was noticing that I had those commitments, but was scheduling other commitments right up until that time. It was like, I actually now schedule in travel time. I talked before on another webinar, I schedule in lunch time. if you want to maintain work-life balance, you've got to be mentally healthy, physically healthy, emotionally healthy. So I told other people I'm a diabetic. I need my meals at the same time every day. I need my snacks. So this idea about, well, I'm going to work through lunch or I'm going to skip lunch. No, I can't do it. And I think it's just taking care of myself. Like, you have to take care of yourself and not feel guilty that you're doing that. Lori, do you do other things to help take care of yourself?
Absolutely. I think it's so very important to keep in mind your priorities. You know, when you become a school leader, you have a whole new level of responsibility for the students and staff who are in your building, and for their safety and for their well-being. But you've probably heard the phrase, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. Along those lines, the school leader has to be content with who he or she is as a person before you can pour out and provide for all of the people who are now in your care. And that's kind of how I view my position. And I think, a lot of really effective leaders look at their role as, serving others, and you can't do that when your heart and mind and soul and spirit aren't healthy. And so, one of the things, Mark, that I really had wanted to address tonight was the idea of kind of emotional intelligence and really being in tune with yourself and not feeling like it's necessary to sacrifice you and your personal health and your personal well-being for the good of the school, because that generally does not end that way. Would you agree?
And you talk about mama being happy. I always say a happy, healthy principal makes for a happy, healthy school. Because if I'm cranky or crabby because I'm hungry, or I brought stress in, we mirror it for our staff and our students. They can read us, they can feel us. So, I mean, it's things like if family time and family dinner time is important to you, then you have to find a way to make that happen in your schedule. Maybe it means you have to come in earlier in the morning to get things done and things accomplished so that you can be home. If you are a person who goes to yoga or works out, is that in the morning for you? And then you have to stay after work a little bit. You have to, there has to be some give and take.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when you were talking earlier about how in the morning you like check your appointments and kind of go through what's on your agenda for the day, I was thinking, gee, I get up, and if I don't get my exercise in first thing in the morning, it's probably not going to happen because, things just I get consumed with other things during the day. And much like you, Mark, I have a husband, but our children are all grown and out of the house. So I don't really have anybody else that I need to worry about, helping get ready for their day. My husband's pretty self-sufficient. So,
you don't have to dress him in the morning?
I don't have to. So, my morning routine is a little different from your morning routine, but I can stay later in the day if that's what, is necessary. So, individually, we have to decide what works best for me.
Mm-hmm. And there, I think about it as seasons. There are seasons in the school year. My husband, Kip, knows September and December and May, those are not the time for us to plan getaways or to be gone. You have to know that May is going to require you to have so many evening commitments, and then with friends and family, you just have to be ready and you have to communicate that. And what that leads me, another idea is work-life balance. In Principles in Action group, another group I'm part of, we recently, or a Twitter chat, the power of saying no. Sometimes you have to say no. And I sometimes have to say no to things at school. I don't like to, but when a school event is in conflict with a personal event, yeah, sometimes you have to say no. Do you have to say no?
I do. And, you know, it's taken me a little while, honestly, to learn that. I think you said you've been a principal for 21 years, and I'm in my 8th year, which I still feel like I'm in my infancy. But I am learning that not every problem needs an immediate solution. And I'm far better off to help others think through how to solve the problem themselves rather than look to me to solve it for them. And, you know, that just comes, I think, with time and experience.
Right.
But saying no is vital. As a school leader, you are one person, and if you have an assistant principal or a dean of students or someone else who is able to help share the workload, especially with student discipline, you know, that helps. But also helping your assistant principal. My assistant principal is phenomenal, and she and I work really well together, helping her learn that she doesn't have to be the answer for everything. It's, you know, it's just a lesson that's really important.
Mm-hmm. And I want to go off of finding others and sharing the workload. One point I wrote down is you have to learn how to delegate. While I would love to be present for all events and around for all activities, I have to count on other members of our school team to be present. I have also learned to ask for help. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. I have to say that to my teaching staff. No, don't keep things from me. Don't be afraid to let me know your vulnerabilities. Then we can talk and discuss, and I can find ways to support you. But we do have to count on others and ask for help and delegate to help with this work-life balance.
I think a key characteristic of a great leader is that person who looks for and supports you know, leadership in others. You know, distributed leadership is a valuable thing in a school community because that builds, you know, that reliability that we have on each other, that each one of us contributes something to the overall good of the group.
Mm-hmm. And I talked at the last webinar, I know principal colleagues who say they can't be out of their building. We have our state principals conference next week. Yeah, we hold it in the middle of February here in Minnesota. That makes a lot of sense. But we have our principals conference in February next week. And I have colleagues who, no, I can't be gone. I can't do that. I have to be in my building. And oh no, you have to rely on others. You have to delegate. You have to feel comfortable being gone, because part of that work-life balance is, how are you feeding yourself? How are you enriching yourself? How are you making those connections and learning? Do you have trouble being out of your building?
Not so much. I have a lot of confidence in the people who step up in my absence. And I really think that, you know, part of that is that we've got some specific procedures and protocols in place that aren't dependent on my attendance or, you know, my being there. This has been a difficult year for me personally. My father passed away in October, rather suddenly. I've had some medical issues in December, so I've had to miss, in fact, I'm trying to remember how much time I did miss. I think I missed about 7 days with my father's death, and then I was off for the week before Christmas and then 2 weeks of Christmas break. But that's the most school I think I've missed in my probably last 10 years combined. But this, people stepped up, and they keep the ship moving forward, and we are a team and we work together. And so part of this work-life balance is building capacity in your staff so that things don't fall apart when you're not there.
Say, how in those tough times this year for you in your personal life, which also is connected to your work life, how did you take care of yourself to achieve some of that balance?
Well, first of all, I tend to be a very transparent person, and so I shared. I have, because my staff is pretty big. I have 101 staff members. I have team leaders, and so I had shared with them earlier in the year, right when my father was diagnosed with his cancer, and that when I knew I was going to be having some medical issues, I shared with them, and so that kind of eased my burden a little bit. And then at an appropriate time, I shared with my staff, and they're a very compassionate staff. So just, I guess, being raw and authentic and transparent, because every person at some point in our journey suffers loss. Every person suffers, through some medical situations that you didn't plan on. And so I think when we connect as human beings, we take away the, hierarchy or whatever, the structure of our roles in the building, and we communicate and share as human beings walking on this journey together. That helped me, because I was able to just be, real with what was going on. That helped me keep balance. And then, exercise is really important for me. So during the time when my father was hospitalized, and even, during his passing, I was still exercising, trying to take care of myself mentally that way. I was surrounded by family, so emotionally I had support. Part of work-life balance for me, Mark, is about, my spiritual journey. And so, continuing to go down that journey. And it's a struggle, because when you go through loss, it's not easy.
But I like your sharing, and I like how you talk about transparency, because I think we have to model that, because our staff members will be and are going through many things that are affecting them, and we want them to be happy, healthy, and balanced, so they come to work and they're working with the students. So I applaud you and thank you for sharing that transparency, that vulnerability. And I would say it took me a lot of years to recognize that. I think I kept things in, but you are right. When I've shared my struggles or challenges with others, then we're doing good role modeling. We want them to share with us so we can be supportive. And it's also showing that I'm a human. It ebbs and flows, but right now at this time, I need this from you, and this is how you can help. In your absences, and you talked a little bit about communication. Communicating what we know up front and being vulnerable is helpful. Do you stay in touch by phone or text? Did anyone need to reach out to you?
I was in regular communication with both my assistant principal, my assistant superintendent, my superintendent, and my secretaries. Um, my So we've had a very interesting year in my building. My assistant principal actually had a pretty significant medical situation the very first day that we had our staff, and she was out for the first 6 weeks of school. So I provided an update to our staff regularly through email about her situation. And then she kind of returned the favor when I was going through the situation with my father with his death. And so I do, in the spirit of transparency, I want to let you know that I was really hesitant to share my personal medical situation and knowing that I was going to be gone because it did put me in a place of vulnerability. And I really had to examine my own feelings because I didn't want people to feel kind of sorry for me or, which nobody, that's not what anybody, their care and compassion is not them feeling sorry for me. But, we go through these games, I guess, in our own minds about how people are going to perceive, the information we're sharing. And kind of on a different subject, but because you said something about happy teachers, we want our teachers to be happy, just reminded me that this last summer, my assistant principal and I have planned a staff retreat, and it was a voluntary opportunity for people to come in where we could just build some community. We did some team building activities, but our theme was #HappyTeachers. And on several different occasions this year, people have commented that, hey, Lori, this was our theme for the year, and yet look at all of the basically trials that you face, but, we're still moving forward. And so happiness is not dependent on the situations that we find ourselves in. We can choose happiness even when we're suffering loss or going through, personally challenging medical situations. And so just being that model for our staff and, having open conversations with them, I think is really important.
Right. AJ asked a great question, hello out there, about is there too much sharing or can there be too much transparency between a building leader and the staff? And wow, it made me think about my current experience is that I'm a year and a half into my current building and my current district. 18 years as a principal in one district. And I guess I think there probably is a point where there's too much, but I also have learned in my career that I need to find a few key people. A lot of times it's the administrative assistant because they're supporting your schedule and your appointments and your calendar. So I find it necessary to find a few key people who I am sharing and feel comfortable in being vulnerable and sharing a lot more. There might be some things I don't have to share with everyone on the staff, but I think people are caring and people are concerned. I spent the first night ever in a hospital in early December for something that I was feeling in my heart. It turned out to be great, but I just was surprised coming back that everyone wanted to know, and I had to stop and think, okay, their intent is they really are caring, they really are concerned. No, they're not just being nosy. But I think that it's probably a balance. There's probably a few key people that you can be more open with, and the rest you want to be open. I don't want to be seen as being closed or secretive, I guess.
I 100% agree with that. you have to be careful, because as the leader, you know, people look up to you, and they want to have, they want to trust your leadership. And sometimes, you know, I guess the potential does exist that you could share too much. But I think when it comes on, you know, you figure out, like Mark said, who your key people are that you really can go to and kind of share the entire story. And then as people ask, you know, these personal things, you know, you have to figure, my mantra is, if I tell it to one person, I'm going to expect that everybody's going to hear it. So
Right.
if I don't want everybody to know this particular thing, then I'm not going to share it with anybody. That's just a safer way to operate in my mind.
Hey, let's flip things around a little bit, maybe on a little bit more upbeat topics. So if we think about work-life balance, and we want to be good role models, and we want to do things for our staff. Now, do you do fun things at school to show your appreciation, or to try to balance things out? I'm thinking of during these winter months. They're cold, they're long, it's far between breaks. So what do you do to have fun or bring a little levity to work?
So for us, well, we did something really fun in December called the 12 Days of Christmas. And right now we're doing Wondrous Winter Wednesdays. So every Friday I pick one staff member who gets to draw a tag out of a bag that my assistant principal and I came up with some fun things. And elementary teachers love Jeans Days. So we have like jeans passes in there. We have one day we stocked the refrigerator with sodas and waters and all kinds of fun, you know, Gatorade, all kinds of fun things. So just something fun and lighthearted to, you know, say we thank you for all you do for our students, and we're trying to, you know, keep our spirits high. So we're doing that right now. What about you?
Upcoming, we have Midwinter Meltdown, tropical theme, smoothies, Hawaiian pizza. I've taken the idea of the treat trolley from other principals on a Friday afternoon, stock it up, roll through the hallways. Do you think that that helps or makes a difference between this work-life balance?
I do. I mean, I think that when teachers are enjoying work, when they enjoy coming to school, not just because of the interaction that they have with their students or maybe with their immediate teammates, but they as a community see that, you know, we are all here to, you know, bring some joy to each other's lives, even if it's something as silly as, you know, wearing yellow all one day because we're going to be the sunshine because we've had all these gray days of winter. You know, just something that unites us and keeps us focused on the positive.
I have a question for you. Do you take work home?
Yes, I do.
Oh.
Now, what I will say is that, you know, my disclaimer is my husband just is starting a new facility where he works, and so I'm home in the evenings a lot by myself, and so I don't have a lot of work that I do at home in the evenings, but sometimes I actually this week I really haven't done much except for tonight I did a little bit of work. What about you?
I do not bring work home except if it's work that I might do from a device. I do my staff bulletins and parent newsletters on S'more. So I'll log in and maybe update the S'more. In a crunch, I've also logged in to our Talent Ed teacher evaluations. I have written up evaluations at home. But all right, this will sound silly. Many, many years ago as a teacher, when I watched some of my colleagues take these big bags of papers home to correct and lesson plans to do, in my mind, it was, hey, I don't bring my laundry to school to do during work. I'm not bringing my work home during my home time because, no, I've got those tasks to do. That's why at the beginning I say, maybe I have to go in earlier or stay later. I just didn't want to cross that boundary. Plus, that bag that's sitting in the chair or the corner that you're not going to get to, but just you're guilty because you see it and you're not going to do the stuff. No, I learned just leave it at school. So
I really think that that is great advice. And it's February 1st, so it's like a new month. I'm going to implement that this whole month, Mark. I am going to make a commitment to myself that I will work until I don't have to bring anything home with me in the evenings, or until 5:30 p.m. or 6 p.m., and then I'll just come home.
right. And one of our friends here tonight, she doesn't even bring the bag into the house. She said she just leaves it in the car. I guess that would help with feeling guilty by seeing it. Though it is, I mean, work has also changed in this social media, being connected. I mean, so we're online tonight here. Some people might think that's work. I engage in Twitter chats and Voxer groups. So the work may be done a little bit different. Yeah.
Well, and to your point, you know, a lot of the Twitter chats are in the evenings, and I don't really view that as work, though. That's more professional development for me, and just that fills my cup. You know, when we talk about work-life balance, because, you know, as a school leader, you go to school and you've got a lot of responsibility, and you give and you help and you know, step in when you need to. Care of, you know, filling your cup and making sure that you are able to provide good leadership. And so Twitter chats, you know, help me connect with others and do that for me.
And help with that balance, getting
Yes.
ideas, sharing. Paul asked a question about after school meetings that you hold with teachers. I'm going to describe my setup, and then Laura, you can talk about yours. I think people have to figure out what works. So in my school, I'm a late start elementary school, 9:30 in the morning, so 4 o'clock. Those are our hours. We do not have after school meetings. All of our meetings are in the morning. We just have that schedule that allows for that. But I'm going to connect that to I create the meeting schedule for the entire year so that people know Wednesdays, our first Wednesday is a staff meeting, the second is an equity team, the third is professional development, the fourth is PLCs, Tuesday morning are for special ed meetings, Monday morning are for our student assistant team. So we create that schedule, and I stick to that schedule so that staff members can plan. I don't schedule additional meetings because I know people have commitments with their families. So we don't meet after school. We meet in the morning. We also know our professional development days that the district has designated in our late start mornings. So I try to hold firm to that schedule. And the great thing is then if there's not a pressing need, canceling a committed meeting is a great gift for people. How do you manage meetings, Lori?
Similarly to how you do, Mark, we don't have quite that much time in the mornings. Our teacher workday starts at 8:15 and our students arrive at 8:50. Last year was my first year in the building, and so I had all of my meetings during that 8:15 to basically 8:45 time frame. And so that didn't work really well for staff meetings because, you know, they ask a lot of questions. And so this year I decided to have one staff meeting after school each trimester. So we've really only had two after school meetings at this point. But I did plan those out. I sent those out at the beginning of the year so that teachers could make plans to attend in case they had, childcare they needed to arrange or things like that. And so, I want to honor their time as well, because I'm not a principal first. I'm a wife and mother first. And, in the same way my teachers are husbands, wives, significant other, whatever it is, that's who we are and part of who we are as an educator, so I want to honor, who they are outside of the school day.
That's a good philosophy and a good thought. I'm going to ask Jodie, it's 7:42. Do we want to open it to others for questions? I know we've had people ask questions and we've asked along the way. Is this the right time to do that?
Excuse me, do you and Lori have anything else to share? Did we cover everything?
I'm looking at my notes. I think I plugged in and talked about some of the ideas, that I wanted to cover. Lori?
I do too. I think I just want to kind of reiterate that, that work-life balance really is important. And when you talk about your life balance, think in terms of your fitness, your physical well-being, your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, your financial well-being, making sure that you are addressing all of those areas in your life so that as a professional and as a school leader, you are able to fully be, present in your position, because you're fully aware of who you are in all of those areas as well.
And like I talked earlier, a school year has a cycle, and there are some times in the school year that are busier and some not. I said at the beginning, I might say things that other people, how can you do that? No. Now, as a 36-year veteran educator and 21-year principal, I may be able to say things about delegating or saying no or using technology. Granted, if I were becoming a first-time administrator, yep, your time dedicated to your site and your school may be more, but just know that will wax and wane as the years go on. So you may be dedicating more time to the job at the beginning, but that time that you invest at the start will pay off as your career moves on. So are there questions?
Well, before we start asking questions, I want to thank both Mark and Lori. This was wonderful. I just took, and I think it was refreshing for all of us to hear that it's okay to put ourselves first as people first. So thank you both for your experience and your time. We were very lucky to have your experience and your thoughts to share. So thank you very much. And we look forward to you continuing to share your wisdom with us.
Be happy to. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having us.